The following is a sponsored program paid for by First Alliance Credit Union. Welcome to Good Money Moves, featuring Jenna Taubel from First Alliance Credit Union and Andy Brownell. Here's Andy Brownell on Rochester's News Talk, 1340 KROC AM and 96.9 FM.
Welcome to Good Money Moves. I'm Andy Brownell, along with Jenna Taubel, Director of Brand and Digital Member Experience with First Alliance Credit Union. Hi, Jenna.
Hey, Andy.
Last week, we talked about a vacation on a budget.
Yeah.
Music to my ears. The other members of the family, maybe not so much, but to my ears, it sounds great.
I like it too.
What's the topic for today?
Well, Andy, I don't know if you've been counting, but this is our 200th episode of Good Money Moves. 200. We have been recording episodes of Good Money Moves since 2019. We have
survived
covered...
We survived the pandemic.
We did. We did. Yeah. And we've covered just so many financial topics in
Hundreds.
This time. Yeah. I mean, we've explained the differences between banks and credit unions. We've talked about how to strengthen your personal finances in a variety of ways. We've talked credit scores, debt payoff, budgeting. We've even covered some more interesting and unusual, maybe even uncommon financial situations, like what to do if you find that you've bought a haunted house or even winning the lottery.
Fungible assets or whatever they were called.
Yes, NFTs, absolutely. Yes, we've talked so many things, and there is so much more that we haven't talked about yet too. But today, I really wanted to just take a look back and on some of the shows where we've just had really good information, and we've maybe ones that have stood out to us. And I don't know, we've covered so much. Let's recap.
Okay. Well, yeah, 200 episodes. I imagine that's a great time to recap. Yeah. Wow. I'm a little bit taken back by that. That's amazing. Boggles my mind. Yeah, all the topics, man. You know, there's one that I think does stand out for me, at least, because I think it is so important to everything, is the one we did where it was how to talk about money with your significant other, your spouse or your partner, whatever it may be.
Yeah, that's a great one. And I really enjoy talking about those types of financial topics, and because so much of money is actually an emotional situation. You're making emotional decisions sometimes, and being able to talk about that with your spouse in a non-negative way from an emotional standpoint is so important. And it also directly impacts another important topic to me, and that is talking finances with your kids and helping them learn. So really being able to have those important money talks as a couple also influences your ability to talk the talk with your kids when it comes to money as well, which just helps them throughout their life as well. So being able to talk finances with your spouse, super important.
Well, so much of it is we all have our own comfort zone.
Yeah.
And it all depends on how you grew up and what you were exposed to during those formative years, and your relationship with money is a corny way to say it, but that's what we're talking about. And,
exactly.
And when you have a conflict of those 2 or 3 or different styles of that, to be able to hammer it out, because if you can talk about this without really wrecking things for yourself, you can pretty much get through anything as far as being a partner with somebody.
Exactly. Yeah.
Because it is so emotionally charged.
It is. And it is a big factor in a lot of cases, whether or not people stay together as a married couple. In a lot of cases, the inability to address financial issues is a huge reason people get divorced.
Well, think about,
and that's been true for a long time.
How many sitcom episodes are based upon that premise?
Yeah.
How many shoes do you need, for crying out loud?
Yeah.
Can't believe you bought another motorcycle.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
So
huge.
what episodes stand out for you?
Yeah, good question. So I really, on top of talking about, couples finances and financial literacy for kids, I also really like talking just about the financial basics. And the reason I enjoy talking about that so much, and the reason we continue to do this show really is because these are such important skills and knowledge base to have. And yet so many people either ignore them because they're uncomfortable, or they just plain don't know them and understand them still because nobody took the time to talk about it with them when they were little. Um, but as far as ignoring a lot of the advice that we talk about on the show and the tips that we give, a lot of times it's just because they don't necessarily see the benefit that things like budgeting, or AKA a spending plan, can really provide them. And so, if you think back when we very, very first started the show in 2019, back in October 2019, actually, we talked about reasons people avoid budgeting, right? It can feel tedious, it can feel stressful. A lot of times people think budgets are really restrictive. And of course, in that time, we also talked about why budgeting is so important.
It's kind of like looking in a mirror as well.
It really is. And, I think really the biggest reason to spend time creating a budget for yourself is because it really actually does put you in control of your own money, which just plays a really big part in ultimately creating what we covered in June of 2020, and that is creating that positive money mindset for yourself. Now, if you were listening back in 2020, hopefully you remember this show. But you might remember that when you do have that positive money mindset, essentially it just means that you know exactly how much you have. You know that all your bills will be paid on time every time, and you can really spend money on what you enjoy without worrying about whether you're overspending. And that's really where that all kind of comes together. And of course, you know, we haven't just covered budgeting. We've also talked about the importance of saving money. Again, one of the very, very early kind of segments we did on this show back in September of 2019, we talked about how to save money, and we talked about it in a variety of different ways through several different situations, right? We've discussed why saving money feels difficult, and even why it's actually kind of easy to start saving once you know how, right? A lot of people just don't have that. Well, where do you get started? There's so many different pieces of advice out there. Sometimes just start small. That's always the best advice,
Yep.
But even in later episodes, we've talked about how you can use the money that you've saved to do things like pay off your debts or fund your retirement more effectively, or even talked about, the different types of savings accounts you can use to store your money and really make it
Yep.
work for you as a good money move.
And those topics, the spending plan, budget,
Mm-hmm.
the savings, they're the actual, the purpose of the budgeting is the savings ultimately.
Exactly.
And that there's no cookie cutter way to do this.
No.
This is all dependent upon you and your style and finding a way that's going to work for you.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And that's why we talk about these topics in so many different ways all of the time, because there is no one size fits all. There's general concepts you can follow. There's general things like a budget is set up this way. Yes. But how you manage that and how you divide those categories, or how much you choose to save and for what purposes, that's all so unique to everyone's different financial situation and their goals.
Yeah, finding the motivation is kind of that's up to you.
Exactly.
Yeah. And also the idea that this I thought was really important, because sometimes I listen or read, financial advice, and it's this. We talked a bit about when you do fail.
Mm-hmm.
Your first budget isn't going to be your last budget.
Yeah.
And my budget changes a couple times a year, probably.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. You make these adjustments based upon what's happening in your life today.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
100%.
All right. We're talking about 200 episodes of Good Money Moves. Some of the highlights, because there were no lowlights, right?
Exactly.
All right. Jenna Taubel with First Alliance Credit Union. Back in a moment with more Good Money Moves on News Talk 1340, KROC AM and 96.9 FM.
Good Money Moves continues in moments with Andy Brownell and Jenna Taubel from First Alliance Credit Union. This is News Talk 1340, KROC AM and 96.9 FM. We're talking Good Money Moves with Andy Brownell and Jenna Taubel from First Alliance Credit Union on Rochester's News Talk 1340 KROC AM and 96.9 FM.
It's Good Money Moves, the 200th episode. Good Money Moves here at News Talk 1340 KROC AM and 96.9 FM. I'm Andy Brownell, Jenna Taubel with First Alliance Credit Union as always, and we've been going through reminiscing.
Yes.
About some of the past episodes, our favorites, and some of the fundamental building blocks of making good money moves. And, I think back on those early episodes, especially when we talked about the basics, I really liked the focus on that because once you do, once again, referring to a foundation, once you have that foundation set, then you can really branch out and look at those goals.
Yeah.
And they become actually more attainable once you have the foundation in place.
Yeah, that's a great point. And honestly, that's another topic that we really have talked a lot about on this show in a variety of different ways. And in fact, back even just in June of this year, we talked about why setting those financial goals is so important. And really, financial goals, they give you direction, right? But they also give you motivation. They help you stay focused, and they even kind of start to give you a feeling of accomplishment that will then help you gain the confidence you need to keep reaching bigger and bigger goals. So it's just this really great snowball effect. Once you've figured out how to set and achieve those financial goals, you've really unlocked a secret sauce of some kind to just keep plowing forward. And we haven't just talked about the why you need to set those goals, right? So back in January of 2021, we talked about how to achieve those goals using the SMART goals framework. Do you remember that episode, Andy?
Of course.
Okay, quiz time. What does SMART stand for?
I'm going to ace this time because we did this about a month ago. You quizzed me a month or so, and I messed up one of them. So S is specific.
Yep.
M is measurable.
Yep.
The A is, I just said the word a minute ago, attainable.
Yes.
Realistic for R.
Yep.
And it was the T that messed me up last time. Time. It has to have a deadline. Time. It's time restricted or whatever.
Yeah, time bound. Absolutely. Yeah. So essentially that SMART goals framework, it's just, we really like to use it here at First Alliance because how simple it is. And really it's just asking yourself a series of questions. How much money will you need? How will you measure the progress towards your goal? Where are you going to get the money for the goal? Is achieving this goal possible now based on how quickly you want to attain that goal, right? When do you expect to reach your goal, or when do you need to reach your goal by? So using that SMART goals framework to just kind of ask yourself a series of questions to help you frame that goal into actionable steps is so powerful. And we've talked about setting financial goals in a variety of different situations as well, right? Just I think the episode you were just referencing about 2 weeks ago, we talked about setting financial goals in your 20s. And we also talked about how to prioritize your personal financial goals just last month. And even, discussed how couples, going back to our earlier conversation, can set financial goals together when we talked about those financial steps that couples should take back in April of 2022. So financial goal setting is a huge, huge good money move.
On a personal level, I can still remember the day sitting at the dining room table where my wife and I talked about, our goal was to get our house.
Mm-hmm.
And we went through, I didn't know the SMART steps, but we were basically doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And when the eureka moment when we realized, hey, we can pull this off. in 2 years we can be there.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was, good memories.
That's awesome.
Fun.
So, and
fun
empowering.
Memories.
It's empowering.
Yes. And speaking of fun, some of the funner episodes that we've had have dealt with more, let's say, unique situations, money-wise.
Mm-hmm.
And, I guess, even just last week, the idea of taking a vacation at the very last minute when you can't do all of the longer term things that you can take advantage of when planning a vacation, but still pull it off.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's really one of the fun parts about doing this show, right? Sometimes you think, well, what would you do in this situation? Or maybe it's a situation you've encountered before and you're like, I really feel like I could have done that differently for a different outcome, but I don't know what the steps are. I don't know what I would change, right? Or how to change it. So being able to talk about some of those kind of unique situations it's just nice to be able to have some answers should that ever happen to you. I mean, I think about things that are, like back in May when we talked about the good money moves you should make if you start earning over $100,000 a year, right? And while that's not likely something that's going to happen to everyone who listens, there's people who do earn over $100,000 a year, whether that's individually or as a couple, right? Yeah. So it's important to talk about those things because we covered things like how to set up your spending plans to really start to avoid that lifestyle creep that happens a lot of times where you are making good money, but you start to feel like you're still living paycheck to paycheck. And so really it's all about how to use your higher income to put yourself on a solid financial footing and really use those resources to the best of your abilities. And then kind of shortly after that, we also talked about the steps you need to take if you have over $250,000 in your credit union account, right? So that all of your money in your accounts can be insured by the NCUA, which is something that people really started to pay attention to after we talked about that Silicon Valley Bank situation that happened. We had Mike come on and talk about that whole situation, just mind-boggling what happened there. But it's so important to make sure that regardless of how much money you have in the credit union or in a financial account, that your funds are protected in their entirety. And there's actually a lot of really unique ways that you can set up your accounts to make sure that what happened to the account holders at Silicon Valley Bank doesn't happen to you should you have more than $250,000 in your account.
Speaking of favorite programs of the 200 episodes that we have done, that was one of my favorites.
Yeah.
When Mike Rosick came on and laid it out there how this happened and why it happened and why it likely won't happen to other institutions because of the uniqueness of the situation that was created by the actions or the lack of oversight within that particular financial institution. Yeah, that was really interesting. Folks, go back and listen to that. If you go to KROC.com and you can look at past episodes and listen in. Very, very informational. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
We're looking back at some of our favorite episodes as we celebrate 200 episodes of Good Money Moves. We'll be back right after this with more on News Talk 1340 KROC AM and 96.9 FM.
Good Money Moves continues in moments with Andy Brownell and Jenna Taubel from First Alliance Credit Union. This is News Talk 1340 KROC AM and 96.9 FM. We're talking Good Money Moves with Andy Brownell and Jenna Taubel from First Alliance Credit Union on Rochester's News Talk 1340 KROC AM and 96.9 FM.
Welcome back to Good Money Moves, 200th episode of Good Money Moves. Jenna Taubel with First Alliance Credit Union here. And Jenna, we're talking about fun things, but we also talked about unique things. And that Silicon Valley bank was a unique thing, but there have been some other pretty good ones out there.
Yes.
And among them would be the one that still eludes me, winning the lottery.
Oh, yeah, that would be a nice problem to have, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I keep thinking about it. It's almost like the Vikings winning the Super Bowl. The odds are similar.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, we did talk about what to do if you were to win the lottery back in November of 2022. But I think one of the interesting takeaways on that particular episode for me was that, well, yes, it would be nice to have millions of dollars coming into your life. It could actually wreak so much havoc on your life, right? Like there were some pretty interesting stories
Oh
of what
yeah.
happened to certain individuals who have won and how it just destroyed their life. And a lot of lottery winners actually end up declaring bankruptcy within a few months of winning, which is
I
just
know.
crazy to me.
How
But
could that be?
again, because they don't listen to Good Money Moves, first of all, and they just have no idea how to manage that kind of money. Like it is, I don't think you realize just how much several $1 million is. Like it would be so easy in one instance to spend it all on frivolous things and not make the most of it for the long term. But I think the best strategy that we talked about in that episode is to try to keep the fact that you want a secret from everybody if you can, because everybody's going to come knocking on your door looking for a piece of that pie otherwise, right? So you want to hire that lawyer to create a trust where you can deposit that money, and then you need to come up with a plan for how to actually invest the money you win before spending all of it. Of course, there was a lot more to it, and you have to go back to and listen to that episode to get the full story. But it's certainly a unique situation, and a very interesting one, and a good problem to have. But you definitely need to know how to handle it should you win that kind of money.
And I do hear people say, I don't really want to win it because it would just ruin my life. You know.
Yeah. Yep.
And you did provide examples of that. But most of the time, what we talk about on this program, Good Money Moves, is the information you really need to take care of the day-to-day business of actually having your money work for you.
Yes.
Set your goals and reach your goals with the resources you have on hand. And I guess that is the essence of Good Money Moves, right?
It definitely is, right? It's so important to know the basics of your finances and how to manage those. And those are definitely the things that we tend to cover the most on this show. And I think have probably the biggest impact on people's lives overall is, those strategies we talk about for how to pay off debt, how to save money, just how to manage your spending day to day appropriately so that you don't feel like you're living paycheck to paycheck or that you're constantly overspending or having to rely on credit cards to cover gaps. And another huge piece of the puzzle is like understanding your credit score and how that works and how that can affect you. We've talked about that several different times on this show. And of course, like we talked about earlier in the show, setting those financial goals and making budgets and, all of those basic pieces of information that if you understand those, you can start to make better choices for yourself, right? And that's the reason we keep doing this podcast, is to really help the members of our community develop that financial literacy that they need to be able to make those smart money choices for themselves and their families.
Yeah. And thinking back to one thing we didn't mention is we've had Nate in a couple times talking about security.
Yes. Yeah. What to do if you're scammed or identity theft, or if you know how to see the warning signs someone that you know and love is being scammed and what you can do to step in. So yeah, though many episodes on that too. Good point.
We could spend the whole day here talking about this, but we cannot. So I'm going to count on you to point us in the direction where we can find more resources about this program, but also about the whole topic of actually making good money moves.
Yeah, absolutely. You can visit our website at firstalliancecu.com. You can listen to past episodes of this show specifically at firstalliancecu.com/podcast or on kerosnews.com. You can also subscribe to Good Money Moves on Apple, Google, and Spotify. If you love our show, please leave us a review on your favorite podcasting platform. And what better episode to do that on but our 200th episode? Of course, if you have a financial topic or a question you would like us to cover cover on Good Money Moves, please send me an email at marketing@firstallianceu.com. Of course, you can subscribe to the First Alliance Credit Union blog. We also release new financial tips and advice out on there every week as well, so that you can read more in depth about many of the good money moves that we cover on this show. And of course, I strongly encourage you to reach out to our team at First Alliance Credit Union. They are here to help you start making good money moves today.
That's First Alliance Credit Union, insured by NCUA and an equal housing lender. Tune in next week for episode 201.
Yes.
Start counting again. All right, Jenna, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
For the trip down memory lane here.
Yeah, it was great.
All right, we'll do this again next week. More good money moves on News Talk 1340, KROC AM and 96.9 FM.